So let me start right away. And my title, as you may or may not be aware, is called Seeing Deeply from the Bottom of the Heap, Persistent Resistance and Resistant Persistence and African American Feminisms. And so I start with this quote from Audre Lorde, a self-described Black lesbian mother, warrior, poet. She has said, quote, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives," unquote. Human beings do not have one singular feature which defines and impacts their way of life, interactions with or struggles against others. Heterogeneity is the key word. Black women recognized and understood early on the importance of dealing with the intertwining of various aspects which all define their lives. Just to name a few of those aspects, being Black and female, poor and of little standard education, and maybe queer. Many factors define one single person's life, and therefore it is of no avail to put the focus on one single issue when fighting for social justice. Black women in the US have always placed a crucial role in the struggle for freedom and recognition of human rights for the African American population. Against all odds, they have always been the ones who looked out for and took care of the community, be it in their own family, in the churches, or while organizing resistance attempts against a consistent racism and sexism within US society. Even if early Black women have not verbally labeled their activism as feminist, they have indeed always been led by a strong conviction in equal gender rights. Their activities in organizing, their development of theories that aim to emancipate Black women from Black men's sexism and from white women's racism, evident in non-inclusive feminist movements, were actually driven by a feminist mindset. Feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. Scholar activist Bell Hooks' early definition of feminism, derived from her book, Feminism is for Everybody, and is a clear and simple definition of feminism and what it stands against. This condensed definition is significant because it outlines how multi-layered feminism should be conceived. In the so-called mainstream discourse, the dominant notion is that feminism is only about anti-sexism and is mainly being articulated by white women or feminists. The experience they draw from and which they set as standard is from a middle-class white heterosexual female one. Views and experiences that differ from this outlook are not taken into consideration. Hence, Black women's realities, as well as multiple forms of oppressive dynamics, were rather non-decisive factors in the forthcoming of the dominating discourse in feminist movements. This was the case in the late 19th and 20th centuries, and arguably still is to a certain degree in this century. Even though Black feminist thought has only been recognized in the dominant discourse of feminist theory during the 1970s, its roots run deeper. Black women during and after the US enslavement period have always realized the dimensions and impacts of their struggles against racism and sexism within their lives as a common and connecting thread. Best known is Sojourner Truth's speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" at the Women's Rights Convention in 1851, where she was the only Black speaker and addressed the burden and injustices she faced in her life and simultaneously challenged the convention's composition of only white women and men. Truth's illiteracy and lack of formal education did not hold her back to utter this pivotal manifest of early Black female consciousness. Black female scholars of the 19th century, such as Anna Julia Cooper, Maria Stewart, Mary Church Terrell, went on to formulate and center on the importance of Black women, their status, place, and struggles within US society as a whole, and within the Black community in particular. Moreover, Black women like Ida B. Wells or Mary McLeod Bethune were pioneers in the development of Black feminism. Without those foundational works and thoughts, subsequent Black feminists like Patricia Hill Collins, Bell Hooks, Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, and the Combahee River Collective, and many others would not have been able to nuance and expound the struggles and achievements of Black women, nor to discuss Black women's participation within and beyond the Black liberation struggle. Nevertheless, it is vital first to examine how Black feminist thoughts and activisms differed and generated during time. Secondly, Black feminism needs to be acknowledged as an organic body of thought, which varies depending on the context in which it is examined. And thirdly, the works of Black feminist thinkers must be conceived as an integral part within the frame set of Black liberation struggle in the United States, with an impact on those thoughts and actions across borders. Even though there are various groundbreaking anthologies, books, and a great deal of scholarly articles and papers that deal with Black feminist theory, publications by even well-renowned Black women activists and literates are barely being touched or suggested as reading material within mainstream academia classes or seminars. In this way, Black feminist perspectives are disregarded in the mainstream discourse, especially the continuity of the entanglement between Black activism and Black feminist theory has rarely been discussed or taken into consideration when talking about Black feminist thought in the mainstream discourse. This talk wants to fill the gap and give an insight into the development, the continuity, and hence the importance of Black feminist thought within the early and ongoing Black freedom struggle. Due to the complexity and indefinite spectrum of knowledge already produced, this talk aims at outlining a perspective that bridges the late 19th and early 20th century thoughts and efforts of Black feminists with those of the 20th and 21st century. This needs to be highlighted because the voices of Black women have commonly been excluded from rhetorical scholarship, especially with regard to their lived experiences as a source of a theoretical and scholarly analysis. So I begin by focusing on the period of the late 19th and 20th and early 20th century and the emergence of Black feminist ideas and thoughts that rooted in the aftermath of the period of enslavement and in an openly racist judicial system, connecting the thoughts that were developed by various Black female intellectuals and demonstrating how they went hand in hand with contemporary Black liberation efforts is important, as it shows that Black feminist thought and activism have generally and always been interlaced. I conclude by focusing on the Black Lives Matter movement to illustrate the continuities that emerge when analyzing how Black feminist thought is being perpetuated and filled with life. The important theme throughout is that Black feminist thoughts are multi-layered and intersectional. This will be especially evident when analyzing the organizational structures of the Black Lives Matter movement in the US, as well as its impact beyond those state lines. To further various societal issues, Black women established a women's club movement of their own during the late 1880s in response to the alienation they experienced from white women's clubs that had been created a little time before. By shedding a light on the involvement of Black female intellectuals within the women's club movement, various dimensions of their engagement become visible. This period can be discerned as an especially important one for Black women in the USA because it had not been long that the institution of slavery had been abolished and Jim Crow laws swiped the whole country. Slavery had nominally ended, but did not bring freedom to the formerly enslaved ones. Black women had to face those atrocities as well as bias based on gender. So being Black and a woman constituted peculiar, diverse, and most complex living conditions. Early Black feminists, be it more on an academic level, were mostly engaged in raising an empowered Black female consciousness and in fighting for a liberated Black people as a whole. Women like Sojourner Truth, Anna Julia Cooper, Ida B. Wells, Mary McLeod Bethune, and others challenged the status quo of their times by introducing some early Black feminist thought, which lay the foundation and certainly would develop with time passing, taking into account the circumstances of them taking the audacity to speak out and the challenges they met on a daily basis. Their attitudes and thoughts can be considered as feminist and need to be viewed as progressive. I return here and expand upon the point that intersectionality is at the heart of feminist analysis, or a leading paradigm and an indispensable tool. This fact has a history that is important to recount here, at least briefly. Early models of intersectional
Ima, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Early models of intersectional analyses of race and gender have been offered by African-American women, writers dating back to the 19th century. Sojourner Truth's powerful and foundational 1851 speech to the Women's Convention in Ohio, for example, is suggestive of an intersectional approach. And so I'm skipping a lot and going to the last two paragraphs. For a comprehensive understanding of the sparkling of the Black Lives Matter movement, it is crucial to differentiate and make room for those lives which formerly lacked attention within traditional Black liberation movements. Alicia Garza, who founded the Black Lives Movement, relates how intersectionality and Black feminism is one of the central premises or principles of the movement. Relating her Garza's comment with what has been said earlier and what is written in the mission statement of the Black Lives Matter organization, it becomes evident how the thought production of early Black feminist intellectual activists influenced the workings of Black Lives Matter and how it is being refined in order to embrace as many lives and their positionalities as possible. Finally, it is interesting to look at how and to which extent the Black feminist concept and approach of intersectionality is embraced and taken as a guideline in other national and international contexts for those at the bottom of the heap who tend to see more deeply the nature of the oppression exacted at the top. And so I hope that has been comprehensible because I had, and I tried to relate the themes.